Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 2 of the CPP SteelBridge University program. My name is Jack Booster, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer, and I will be leading us through our second workshop today. We'll be working on Introduction to 2D Bridge Design, which will be using applications from the first workshop, which is AutoCAD Fundamentals. So jumping right into it, and please feel free to pause to read these important notes. I will also be describing them here in one moment. So before we get on with the stuff on the right with these templates, on the left here I would also like to note that this slideshow will be available to you. We'll be using it to model 9 different bridges in 2D during this workshop. So an important note, every year within SteelBridge we're given a different template, what we call a template to work within, which is what you both see here. We have 2 different years shown. On the bottom is the 2023 template and on the top is the 2024 template. Now they're similar in a lot of ways, but also different in a lot of ways. However, we'll describe that in a minute. First off, what are we looking at here? So coming to our second slide, first picture of a bridge on our left here in our slideshow, we can see that we're looking at the bridge from the side, which is called an elevation view. Again, we're on the right here looking at the bridge from the side. Obviously, we haven't created it yet, but we'll be looking at this bridge and making it based off of its side profile. So a couple notes about our templates. These red areas are called footings, and as you can see, they're the only place where the bridge touches the ground, and in fact is the only place the bridge is allowed to touch the ground. Additionally, we have these 2 dashed magenta lines, which as we can see, this bridge has this nice flat decking on top. That has to exist within this 4-inch gap here at the top. So that spans the whole way, and looking at the bottom here, we also see those red footings and these magenta dashed lines. You'll note there's some more area at the top, but fundamentally we have the same aspects here. We'll also note that the gray line here is the ground surface for reference, and there are also some dimensions for more reference. One last note, when we are drawing within our template here, the only place where our lines are allowed to touch either these magenta or red lines is within the footings. We should never, under any circumstance, have a line that crosses or touches the magenta. Let me reiterate that. We should never, under any circumstance, be in a situation where our line touches any of the solid magenta lines. They will cross over into the dashed, but any of the solid ones we should not touch, and we can only touch the red points in one place. So let's go ahead and get started. This may be a little confusing, but in effect, we're going to be drawing all of these bridges. We're not going to be super exact here. We just want to get the fundamental concepts down. So coming over to the right, we can see we have multiple different setups here. First, we'll start with bridge number 1, which is on the left here. As we can see, bridge number 1. This is using the 2023 template, as we can see, although we will not be using the entirety of the space. So what we're going to do is first build it out on the 2023 bridge template. So we'll want to make sure that we come up to the top. There's a bunch of different layers, which we talked about in the last video, to make sure we're set to bridge 1, which is red in this case. And when we're drawing this, we're only going to be using polylines. The last thing to note regarding our template is we'll notice that this looks awfully thin, whereas this decking at the top is a little bit wider. And I can tell you this is 6 inches. Which obviously won't fit within our 4. This means that only the very, very top part of our bridge needs to be within this. It can extend below, but there must be a flat plane within this dashed line. Okay? So please feel free to pause before I start drawing any of these, and then I will draw them. They may not be perfectly to scale or perfectly measured, but that is okay for the purposes of this workshop. So first off, I'm going to use almost entirely for this polylines. So that is, remember, PL if we type it in, or it's in the top left under the Draw tab. And I've made this easy for you by already putting some snaps. I like to start with the midpoint. And the way I'm going to draw this, I'm going to utilize probably right in the middle, just to be safe. I'm going to bring this all the way across. I'm going to find my midpoint here and bring it all the way up. And that will make the general shape of our bridge. So that is what we'll call the top decking, and then on those vertical members are called columns. So that draws our columns and our top decking. Next, we're going to draw what we're calling the bottom decking, which is everything below that horizontal. So it's not going to be exact, obviously, but we can make it pretty close. And we can get close to this purple line, but let's not get exactly touching it. So I'm going to go down about here. That looks about right. Bring it all the way across, and then bring it back up. So I think that looks roughly symmetric. It's a little bit shallow there, so I'm going to bring that out just by clicking on it and clicking on the blue nodes to move it. And then we'll notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of what are called webbings, or 3 triangles that we have to make here. So let's try to make them. It looks like the outside ones are a little bit steeper, and to connect this line I'm going to use my nearest snap, which is typing in NEA and then enter, and we'll see that little hourglass. So I think about there is good, and we can always adjust these later. And then same thing, I'm going to use my nearest snap to go about there. And then my next will go to the midpoint. And it looks like we might have been a little too shallow, which is totally fine. And actually what I'm going to do here is, actually we'll save the mirroring for later. Let's just freehand this one completely, try to make it match pretty closely. About there looks good, and then we'll bring it down to that point. So fundamentally, and I understand it might be a little hard to see, this bridge is the same shape. Obviously very simplified, but that is what is going to be our bridge 1. And we're going to use a cool different command. So when you have a bunch of different objects or polylines that are on the same layer, you can use a command called select similar. And we just type that in. So I'm going to select similar, and then I'm going to hit enter. It's going to select everything on that layer, which is bridge 1, and I'm going to move that just based on my column here up into bridge 1. And that's 1 bridge down. So next we're going to go to bridge 2. And actually before we move on, I'd like to note this bridge here is Cal Poly Pomona's bridge that won 2nd place overall at Pacific Southwest Symposium out of 14 teams, and then 7th place overall out of 200 teams at the national competition. And this is their 2023 bridge. And then moving on, this is Cal Poly Pomona's 2024 bridge that also won 2nd place at the 2024 Pacific Southwest Symposium and 8th place out of 200 teams at the national competition. So next up, we're going to model this, and it might be a little hard to see on the left side, but we know that it's roughly symmetrical. So we're going to come up to our 2024 bridge template. At the top under layers, we're going to swap to bridge 2, which is white. And then we're going to go about a very similar process, bringing it up roughly to the middle. And I understand this is diagonal. I will be adjusting some of these lines in a moment, but just to get me my rough distances, that looks about right. So we know that our columns are diagonal in this case, which is very different. So I'm going to draw a different line in, and we know that it should be about 5 inches off the ground. And I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to use my nearest snap again, typing in NEA, and then click. So now we know that we can't get rid of this top part, but we can get rid of the vertical part. So we're going to use a new command, which is called break, which is kind of like the trim command, but it's for continuous members. So I'm going to click it here, and I'm going to bring it all the way up, and we can see it's breaking that member into 2 separate pieces. And we know this one's still a little long, so we can either use trim, or we can click on the blue node and bring it down to where we want it. So that looks a lot better compared to what we had. And now we need to figure out how many different triangles we need to make. So there's 1 triangle there, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So we know that, actually, before we get there, let's make our column on the other side. So I'm going to join those 2 into 1 line, and then I'm going to mirror them about the center. Just dragging it straight up, erase source object to no, and now we have our corrected column, and then we'll do the same thing with the break command. Alright, and now we have those roughly about right, and since we're here, we can also bring Oh, and we actually, looks like we made an error. We're going to run into this line. So let's make this a little bit higher. Let's make it up to 6 inches. I'm just going to do that by typing it in. And then I'm going to bring a line all the way across. And then I have to move this one up as well to meet it. And then I won't use the trim command here. This one's easy enough. So now we have to make some matching triangles. And we can kind of visually see that all these triangles are going to be the same. So based off that, I'm just going to find out my length. And we can do that by clicking on the member and then typing in properties, enter, and it looks like my menu opened on my second screen, but I'll drag it over. We can see that the length of this is 240. 240, if we divide that by 5, should give us 48. So if we want to do something a little bit more fancy for this bridge, I'm going to get rid of that. We'll use the divide command, and sometimes it can be finicky, but we're going to try to divide this into 5 even segments. And looks like it may not have worked. We'll give it one more try and drag that out of the way. Select object, and let's try that one more time. Number of segments, 5. Well, okay, that's all right. Looks like it didn't want to work with us, so I'm going to redraw that line just in multiples of 48, just by typing it in. So 48, 48, 48, 48, and 48. So now we actually have 2 lines here, which is okay. We'll have to get rid of them. And then we can adjust our columns appropriately based off of our center lines. And now I can basically make that guy. And I'm going to copy this, bring it down here, get rid of our little tail on the end by hovering over, clicking remove vertex. And now I'm going to copy that all the way across our bridge here. And you can see that one still needs to be adjusted a little bit. Oh, looks like it didn't want to copy correctly. Let's do that one more time here. Copy that. I'm going to delete this out since we already have the vertex. And then drag that guy across. And one last thing, just out of good practice, I'm going to join all of these to make them one member because they are polylines. So now, that is our second bridge done. So I'm going to select it, use my select similar again, select it about, gotta use the move command first, and then we'll bring that over to bridge number 2. So next up, bridge number 3 here on the left. A little hard to see, but not super complicated by any means. This is going to be using our 2023 template, so we're just going to swap back and forth between the two. Oh, one more thing we have to do. If I can find my cursor, we go up to the top here, bridge number 3, which looks to be yellow. And we're going to draw our decking again. I'm going to put it right in the middle. Looks pretty good to me. Then using my guideline, I'm gonna find where it ends. Perfect. So that's my decking. As we can see, this is an arch bridge instead of an under truss or a girder bridge. So let's draw the arch. And the arch isn't going to be precise necessarily, but we can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these vertical members here. So what I'm going to do, and we know one is going to be straight smack dab in the middle, I'm going to draw that one first. And then I'm kind of just going to eyeball it. Obviously this is would not be how we design in the real world, but this isn't the real world. This is just for practice. So we do 1, and I think that looks about right. So that'll give us one coming straight down to our intersection, another one here, and one last one. And once we have that, I'm just going to use my mirror command so I can make it perfectly symmetric. Bring it straight down, not erase, and then bam, there is our bridge. I'm going to make these two a continuous member. And then there we go. That's bridge number 3 done. That one was super quick. We're again going to select similar. We're going to use the move command, and we're going to bring that all the way over to bridge number 3. And before we start bridge number 4, which again will be on the 2024 template, we are going to come up here to bridge 4, which is light green, so that we can do our select similar again. Looks like we have a little bit of a visual error going on here, so I'm just gonna get rid of these points to make sure they don't conflict. All right, so now coming onto bridge 4, this is Cal State Northridge. Cal State Northridge's, that's plural, or possessive, sorry. This is their bridge from 2024, which competed directly against this bridge. So very similar to what we've been doing. We're gonna start, we're on bridge 4, draw my decking, come all the way across to find this location, and there's our decking. It's a little bit low, so what I'm gonna do is bring it up a little bit taller here using that node. And this one's a little tough to see, but we can see we have one coming down, and that makes one triangle, two triangles, and it goes back up. So this one has a very long span on it, as we would say. So let's first try by bringing this guy down about there. Oh, looks like we had a weird snap happen there. So I'm gonna undo that and try that one again. If we need to, we can always turn off our snaps down here, which I'm gonna do just for a second, so that we don't get any weird snapping happening. And then I'm gonna turn it right back on, bring that guy all the way across, and then all the way up. And I think I made this one on the right way shorter, so let's do that. Oh, even more it looks like. Nice. Just a tad bit more. Okay, and now we're gonna make our two really big triangles in the middle here. We want to use that center point of symmetry. There we go. And again, just remember, there's a lot better ways to do this, but this is just for learning purposes of utilizing our skills, and it's a little bit more fun this way. So we can see we made those two really big triangles in the middle, and that is basically just going to conclude what we're doing for Cal State Northridge's bridge. I'm going to go ahead and move this one. Oh, didn't like that. We're going to move it on over to bridge number 4. And then that will be done. We're going to select bridge number 5, which is a cyan, up from our layers menu, and then move on to, this is Cal State Northridge's bridge from 2023, which they achieved first place with. And I should note, this bridge achieved third place in 2024. Okay, so this bridge is a little unique. We only have a picture of half of it, which, believe it or not, is intentional for the purposes of this. So we're going to have to extrapolate what they did based off of just this side. We are going to run the assumption that this is a symmetric bridge, which I think is very reasonable. And then we will just kind of have to flip it in our mind as we're doing it. So now that we're on bridge number 5, we'll start our polyline. I'm going to make our decking first, as always, just so that we have a frame of reference to work off of. Again, we can see this is an arch bridge. So I'm going to bring my arch up all the way. Looks like we have a weird snap happening. Pretty much all the way up. And then I'm going to do something a little unique on this one. Since we don't know precisely what the other side looks like, I'm just going to use my mirror tool. So I'm only going to go halfway with that. And then I'm going to make these members. We can see there's one vertical member here. So I'm going to take that guy straight down to intersection. And then this, I'm going to try and make something similar to it on this side. But again, doesn't have to be perfect. And there we go. So based off this, it looks a little shallow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this node over, which is going to move the node for all of those guys. So we need to make sure we use our guidelines correctly. Oh, and it looks like I actually used it incorrectly there. Let's just make sure we capture all of that adjusted properly. And I think that is looking a lot better. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better. So now that we have this half done, we're going to select it all. I'm going to use my mirror command about the midpoint here. and then we do not want to erase. And the very last thing I want to do is use my join command just to make sure that's continuous. And quite simply, that is our fifth bridge done. So let's select similar off of this. Let's move it. I'll use this right base point and bring that down to where we have bridge number 5. All right. Next up, bridge number 6. This is again from 2024. This is UC Irvine, I believe. And we will be building it based off of this template again. So this one's a little bit more complicated, some different angles. So let's first switch our layer to bridge number 6, which again looks to be a reddish color. I'm going to draw my decking in, perfectly vertical as always. Bring that bad boy up, connect that, and there is our decking. So the first thing I think I want to do here is, so we know that these three look pretty much the same angle. They're a little interesting. We have these verticals and then a really long span off the middle. So I'm going to start this one in the middle, actually, to try and, and as a matter of fact, I actually have to first draw the bottom if I want to be able to use it. So I'm going to draw that, bring it all the way across, and now, using my midpoint snap in the middle here, I'm going to try and eyeball that wide one and use my nearest snap again. I think something like that looks appropriate. I'm going to mirror it. And then, based off of that, we need to land our verticals. And if we ever have any problems, we can always redo this. It's no big deal. Trial and error is the name of the game. Oh, we can see we made a bit of an error there. Click on the node to move it. And I think that looks pretty good. This might be a little shallow for now, but we can see how the rest of it plays out. So let's land a nearest. We'll take that there, there, and then there. And I'd say, with a little bit of adjustment, those look pretty darn good to me. So I'm going to mirror them to the other side about our midpoint, and then join all of these together so they're continuous. That looks pretty good. And then that will complete bridge number 6. So as you can tell, we're going through these pretty darn quick. The bridge design process is obviously a lot longer than this, but these are the fundamentals that every bridge design or design captain for our steel bridge team that has to know. So moving on to bridge number 7. This is another arch bridge from a few years back. So the dimensioning might be a little bit weird, but we are going to design it in our 2023 template for sake of continuity. Oh, almost forgot to switch my layer up here. Bridge number 7, again, a light color. We're going to bring that all the way across. Snap in. We can't really see the columns here. I apologize, I'm overlaying them a little bit. You can see the columns now on both sides. Nothing crazy happening there. There's no bottom decking on this, as we've seen. So we're just going to draw our arch. And we can see at the top it's flat here. So it's in a couple different segments. We'll call it 5. So 1, 2, 3, and then 2 more on the other side. So we need to try and make those roughly symmetric as we go up. And I'm going to try and draw from here to see how I can do on that. So we know where it says ground surface and where it says 24 feet is about our midpoint. And actually I'm going to go just to my midpoint and mirror this. So looking at that, I think that's about right. This span is a little bit shorter in length this way, so it might look a little bit stretched, but that is a-okay for the purposes of what we're doing. I'm going to join that, and I think this does look a little bit long, so I'm going to bring that guy in as well, and remove this node in the middle since we don't need it. So I think that looks pretty good. And we'll notice here we have 1, 2, 3 webbings on each side. None of them are really any specific angle, but they're also not necessarily, oops, that's the wrong command. They're also not necessarily straight down. So let's draw that one at a slight angle. I think that looks good. Let's bring this guy, and this will be exaggerated a little bit. That there, and then that there. And I think that looks pretty darn good to me. I'm gonna mirror that to the other side. And then that, although maybe a bit stretched, is our basic design. So I'm gonna select similar on that again. We're gonna move this all the way over to our bridge number 7 layout. And then last two coming up. So we have two more interesting bridges, or maybe a little bit harder to model. This again is a 2024. This is Cal State Long Beach from 2024. They did not place with this bridge, but they did have an interesting design. So we're going to go into our layer menu. Bridge number 8 is again yellow. And then we'll get this bad boy going. So there's our basic decking. And then now, this bridge is very interesting. We don't have to worry about these double wide columns. We'll just count the center line from more or less. I'm going to select somewhere right about there. And then we can see it tapers off almost to the middle, but not quite. So we'll go about there. And then we're just going to draw one side and then mirror it. So we can see we got these weird little diagonals and then one vertical. So let's draw that vertical one first. And I will note this is not a very structurally sound bridge by any means. In fact, we should actually have the most reinforcement in the middle because of bending moment. But this is a way to design a bridge, and it did win first place in lightness. So it did succeed in its goal. Anyway, getting back to the CAD, we're going to draw one diagonal in here. Goes about there. And then one more in here, it looks like. That one's a little bit more steep from the picture. I'm going to select those 4 polylines. I'm going to mirror them about our center as always. Not erase it. And then that is roughly what we're looking at here. So let's select similar on bridge number 8. Let's move that over to the layout for number 8. And then we will move on to our last bridge, which is a little bit tough to model if you don't do it right. And I know it looks very simple, but it is extremely repetitive. So let's move on to bridge number 9 here. This is actually a 2023 bridge, believe it or not, but it could also be used in the 2024 template, regardless. So lastly, we're going to bring this up. We missed that. Same process as always, get our decking in there very first. We can see that not this whole depth isn't necessarily used. So I'm gonna find a decent point in there. And then I'm not gonna go ahead and count this just for sake of the video, but there are a lot in here. Let's guesstimate there's about 15 to 20. My design isn't necessarily going to have that. I'm just going to get the fundamental idea here. It's about 45 degrees. Oop, looks like we lost that. So let's extend this. And then I'm going to mirror this. And there's going to be a lot of mirroring happening in this, and or copying, depending on the way you do it. But effectively, this is all we have to do. Now, this bridge is extremely common because it is extremely easy to fabricate due to the simple nature of it, we'll call it. But it's actually very difficult to construct because there's always at least one bolt in the middle of every one of these X's, plus numerous more across the bridge, which makes it quite the time sink, if you will, when you're constructing it. And it looks like we don't quite line up here. I'm gonna make a design call and adjust our columns a little bit to better fit where we're at. Obviously this is not the way we would do it in real life, but for sake of time in our video here, just gonna slide that guy across and then bring this one into it as well. It is still within our footing, as we can see there, so I'm not concerned, but it is also not ideal. I will select across these to try and join some of them, just so we don't have too many loose members. Looks like we got 2 separate zigzags. I'll select similar. We will move this about our footing here and then paste that in. So now that you've completed this video, you have successfully modeled 9 different bridges of varying levels in AutoCAD in 2 dimensions. In the next workshop, you will be given basically the same templates, and you'll be given the free reins to design whatever you think based off these bridges would be best. Whether that is extremely complicated or extremely simple is up to you. Please make sure to tune in for the last episode of AutoCAD, and we will give more directions on how to go about designing your own bridge. With that being said, please make sure to upload your file correctly and use the Q button to quick save, or the button up here, to save your drawing before closing. With that, my name is Jack Boussier. I hope you learned something during this video, and I look forward to working with you in the future.